Premise 1. The laws of logic are universal and absolute, meaning they apply to all things and are true in all circumstances. Premise 2. The existence of these laws implies an ultimate source or foundation for logic. Premise 3. The only possible ultimate source for such a foundation is God, who is eternal, immaterial, and logically necessary for the universe to exist. Conclusion. Therefore, the existence of logic presupposes the existence of God. We all have beliefs about reality, and we all use reason to make sense of it. However, where do these beliefs and this capacity for reason come from? The presuppositional approach argues that they come from God. Without God, reason and knowledge are impossible. If we do not assume the existence of God and His revelation, we cannot explain how we can have certain knowledge about the universe ourselves, or anything else. We cannot explain why we have the capacity to reason, communicate, or experience love. Furthermore, the presuppositional approach argues that without God, all other arguments regarding morality, truth, and purpose are impossible. If we deny God's existence, we are left with relativism and skepticism, and we cannot have a system of objective morality, truth, or purpose. Thus, the presuppositional argument states that it is only through the assumption of God's existence as the foundation for reason and morality that we can have any meaningful understanding of reality. God is the ultimate presupposition upon which all other knowledge and belief depends, and apart from Him, humanity would be lost in a sea of skepticism and meaninglessness.
Then we'll switch gears into something else.
Sure. So Jay's basically just saying that if I can arbitrarily say the laws of logic just are, then he can just arbitrarily say that God is. He's completely right, except that's not what's happening. I'm not arbitrarily saying the laws of logic just are. I'm not even asserting that they just are. I am recognizing that I have no reason to think that they could be anything other than what they appear to be, which is inviolate and absolute. I'm not saying they are absolute. I'm saying it's my presupposition, and that presupposition is supported by the continued reliability of these things.
So Matt did avoid the trap where if he was to admit the laws of logic just are, we can say that God just is. It is commonly accepted within philosophy that the laws of logic are necessary assumptions for the very act of reasoning. Without these assumptions, we would not be able to make valid and sound arguments. Therefore, we must assume the laws of logic in order to engage in any kind of rational discourse. Right? Once Presup gets to this point, our worldview will seem to be more consistent. Remember, this argument is all about comparing worldviews, so that the atheist can look back to reconsider his own.
I am not absolutely certain about anything, but that doesn't mean that I don't have reasonable confidence in things that are based on the foundation of logic. Now, if we're going to have the conversation about what's beyond logic, which is apparently what we're trying to do, but criticizing the view is just one more attempt to say, oh, there must be a foundation. Well, where's the demonstration that there must be a foundation?
The demonstration of presupposing God as the foundation to logic is based on the concept that the laws of logic, such as the law of non-contradiction, that something cannot be both true and false at the same time, are universal and absolute, and therefore must have a transcendent and unchanging source. That only God can provide such a foundation, as God's nature is said to be unchanging, absolute, and transcendent. Thus, by presupposing the existence of God as the foundation of logic, we can have confidence in the validity and reliability of logical reasoning, on the basis that it has been grounded in an unchanging, absolute, and transcendent source.
What are the consequences if there's not a foundation to logic?
Right. But the argument is that you don't have a basis or ability consistently to appeal to logic itself, setting aside the justification of whether
I have the same basis everybody else does. I'm convinced that it is reliable, as are you. The difference between us is that you are convinced that you found why it's reliable. That's not. So,
but that was why I asked the question about induction, right? So induction, and saying that you're convinced about it, it would presumably mean that you think that it works, right? It's pragmatic.
Yeah, it works. We both agree with that. So does pretty much everybody else on the planet for the entire.
Right, but just saying something works is a value judgment, right? That you're using another category to try to say that that's why this thing is true, but ultimately that would be circular.
Yes. So the whole thing is I've acknowledged a presupposition. How on earth is it as a counter to me to say, oh, you're presupposing this?
Right, because on the worldview that you have, those kinds of things shouldn't exist.
That's absolutely not true. So this is where we're always going to get in trouble. You make an assertion about my worldview and about what shouldn't exist. My worldview is that I accept this because of a demonstration of its continued reliability.
That's called induction, right? And that's not a justification. That's just saying that it is, right? So in logical justification, that was why I pointed to Hume all the way up to Quine. They still say that this is not a belief or a view that can be justified.
The acceptance of logic, because of its continued reliability, is often described as the inductive justification for using logic. This means that people use logic because they have experienced its effectiveness in the past and believe that it will continue to be a reliable tool for reasoning in the future. It is a circular argument as it assumes the reliability of logic in order to justify using it.
Yes, and I agree. I see no justification. You're asserting there is a justification. And when I ask for what it is, you're just asserting that, well, my worldview collapses without it. And you even asserted that these sorts of things shouldn't exist. Stop. You should have asserted these sort of things shouldn't have existed in my worldview. Where's the demonstration that my worldview should not include things that are just true, or better yet, that are reasonably presupposed because of their continued demonstration of efficacy?
Because that would be being ad hoc and being arbitrary. And I'm saying the justification is that in a world where there is a God, the doctrine of providence actually makes sense why there's induction and the regularity that's in nature.
Now you see how the Christian worldview just makes more sense when compared. They usually accuse us of a circular argument when it is clear that their own arguments are completely circular without having an ultimate foundation. The unbeliever can't transcend to get out of his circle to see what the true nature of reality is, because he denies the Creator that gives us access to reality. So now I am going to conclude this video with the basics of our metaphysics. Christian metaphysic, the basic distinction between the Creator and creature, allows us to keep things in perspective. In order for finite man, creature, to know the nature of reality, it must be revealed by God, Creator. It is important to recognize that given our creaturely limitations, we do not have access to ultimate reality given our reasoning alone. Thanks for watching.